Alright, let's get a new 30-minute game going. Back to my streaming rig. Get the white pieces today. So I'm gonna make a change. I'm gonna play e4 this morning. My rationale is really I just want to see more Caro cans, and it's not likely we'll see a lot of Caro cans if we're playing d4. So e4 it is. I did have to learn some opening in order to play e4 effectively, so I learned the Ruy Lopez. I memorized one line in the martial attack, and we'll see how far we get with that. I suspect not very far. So the idea here is put a pawn out, control the center. Our opponent should play knight to c6 to protect their pawn on e5, otherwise I'll just snap it up. There we go. And then I'll play out my bishop to b5. Uh, sort of, the knight is not pinned yet because there's still this d7 pawn in the way, but sort of threatening a little bit to attack this knight. The knight moves to d4. So already moving out of familiar territory to me. I don't know how to handle this. I didn't study this. So let's think about it. This knight is hitting our bishop. So we could move our bishop out of the way. One thing that happens sometimes in the Ruy Lopez is the Morphe defense. Pawn comes out to a6, bishop drops out to a4. I don't love that here. I feel like it's not really addressing the threat of this knight on d4. It's a very forward outpost for their knight. So I do like the idea of just knight takes, neutralize the threat. They'll probably take back with their pawn, and then we can play d3, opening up our dark square bishop and preparing sort of the remainder of our development. So let's do that. Take the knight, they take back, play d3, just to prevent the pawn from further encroaching on our territory. And then I think I'll get castled next, actually. It feels like a good idea. Took our king away into safety, and now we can resume our development. Their d7 pawn is pinned, which I kind of like, so we're impeding the development of their light squared bishop. We don't have the c3 square for our knight, so maybe we'll do something like bishop out to f4 and then knight to d2 just to finish our queenside development. Play knight to f6. I don't see anything to be worried about really. Guess they could come out to... No, they can't come out to there. Cool. Let's just develop normally. In as much as I understand normal development for the Ruy Lopez. There we go. Okay, so they're playing something that will unstick their d7 pawn. So he plays c6. Where can we move our light squared bishop? a4 and c4 both look pretty good to me. c4 a little bit more active, controlling this diagonal. a4 I think runs into b5, and then we drop back to b3, and then they can potentially push up, trapping our knight. I think this is called the Noah's Ark trap. So let's not fall prey to that quite yet, and just move our bishop to a safe square. This looks kind of nice once we finish our development. Okay, so they're just going to keep harassing. We could take here. They have many defenders, so I think we would likely need to drop the bishop back anyways. But I think I do like taking here just to sort of threaten their control of the center. They might take back with the pawn, giving them an isolated pawn in the center that we can then sort of target and harass. But no, they take back with the knight. d5, another sort of advanced annoying outpost for the knight, also hitting our dark squared bishop. So maybe we just drop back our dark squared bishop to g3, still having this nice open diagonal. I don't know if their knight is threatening to do anything very frightening. Loses the knight. I'm planning on moving this. No, this seems fine. So I'm just going to drop back to g3. We'll see what happens. Now this e-file is opened up. Can hit their king. They have not completed the development. They've just done a lot of knight moves, whereas we have both of our bishops out. We traded a knight. We're threatening to get our knight out to d2. We could... Okay, so they're not threatening to castle anytime soon. In fact, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish, getting their queen out to g5. Could play something like h4 to harass, but I think better just to play a developing move, get our knight out, prepare to connect the rooks, and then prepare to play rook to e1, hitting their king, and maybe starting to cause some problems for them. So let's finish our development. Yeah, this is looking pretty good for us. I don't know much about the Ruy Lopez. I don't know if this is normal or unusual or sort of what's going on. Okay, so they get their bishop out to b4, perhaps getting ready to castle. Oh, and they've got two attackers on this knight right now. So they could potentially take like that. Well, that's no good. We could just get our knight out of the way to e4. And I think this sets up ideas of like knight out to e4. Well, we can't get our rook to e1 because their bishop would be targeting it. Knight out to e4. Their queen has to move somewhere. And then we can maybe do like queen to e2 to pin some piece to their king and hit their king. But certainly if we play knight to e4, they will have to move their queen before castling, otherwise they lose their queen. So I like that idea. And then if we want to execute this pin, we can do it with queen to e2, rather than rook to e1, which blunder the exchange. And maybe they'll move their queen somewhere where we can fork it with the king. If they move here, I guess that wouldn't be an option because it's defended by both the knight and this pawn, but, you know, some appealing options. Okay, so they move their queen, not to a forkable square. Perhaps they are getting ready to castle. I don't think queen to e2 actually accomplish what we're looking to accomplish because they're likely to castle on their next move. And I don't believe we can hit the king in any other way. So is there anything we'd want to play rather than queen to e2, since that appears to be less effective? Play something like c3, forking their bishop and their pawn. This square is also guarded by the knight, so I think we win that exchange. Yeah, let's do that. I guess this square is also hit by their knight. So maybe I didn't calculate this correctly. I think we might lose this exchange, actually. So, okay, they take back, take back. Oops. So if we take back, they take back. Like that, we lose the exchange. So actually this is a tactic that I often miscalculate, but I think in this case, if we take their defender first, then we have a chance to win the exchange. So we take like this, they take back. We take with our knight. Okay. Yeah, they have to take back. We'll take with our knight. They take here, and then we can throw in a check. They might not have a good way. Oh no, they have some options to defend it. Okay. Take back. Now that we've done this, is there anything more appealing that we can do? I don't think so. So I think we'll take this pawn. So now we're at material equality. They might just castle, but that would leave this pawn hanging and would leave us with a nice attack on their bishop. I really like how this game has come together. I feel like we've developed well. We've got a good position. Our king's safe. They haven't gotten castled yet. We're at move 15. Sort of fallen behind. Okay, so they take. We will maybe throw in this intermezzo. Well, no, I guess if we go here, they do have the chance to get their bishop out of danger. So I think we'll take back just to be safe about this. They castle. Okay. Now we can reassess what we want to do with the game. Let's see a hanging pawn on d5. See, they haven't developed their bishop yet. I see an open e file that I think we could place a rook on. Yeah, let's place a rook on the e file. Just make a small improving move, develop a piece. They will need to get their... Oh, they could probably get their bishop out to... Oops, that's not right. Bishop out to g4, I think would be a good move to develop their bishop. And then we can't take back. We could play something like f3 to scare it off, but that does weaken our king side, which I don't like very much. But then when they play this, our queen has to move out of the way, potentially forfeiting defense of this pawn, which their queen would be able to snap up. So we have to be wary of that if they do play bishop to g4. Can't just take back. Okay, they play bishop to f5, I think another way of threatening this pawn. So we could just push that pawn, creating a small pawn chain. Is there anything else we can do? We could play something like rook to e3, getting a rook lift ready, and also defending this pawn. That's kind of a neat idea, and then maybe we could come over to here later, threatening their queen and sort of mounting an attack on their king side. This also threatens to double the rooks, which I think is a nice developing thing to be able to do. And then we can get our queen out to, gosh, I don't know, b3 threatens the pawn on d5. We can get out to a dark square, like d2, to threaten ideas of sort of getting over here and attacking this g7 pawn. But so far this rook lift seems like a promising attacking move, and that's what I would like to accomplish, is really attack. Okay, they play pawn to d4. Sort of attacking our rook, but they don't have anything to back it up. So I think we just take this pawn, and then maybe they have something in mind that will allow them to, yeah, they just recapture in their own way. We could defend this pawn with bishop to e5, which also frees up that space for our rook, and then we start to mount this really impressive attack on their king side. That does a lot of things, actually. That's a big threat. Rook up to g7, supported by the bishop. Yeah, I don't see why we wouldn't do that. So let's start to mount this attack. They might try to kick us out with the pawn move, in which case we can come over and threaten their queen. Their queen doesn't have as many good spaces to go. This pawn will be pinned to the king. They move... they move their bishop to h3. It's unprotected. We certainly can't capture with our g2 pawn, but we can capture with this rook, and I don't think this actually accomplishes anything for them. I think it just blunders the bishop. Our rook retains contact with the pawn that it's defending, so I think we just pick this up. Unless I'm missing something. Yeah, I think they just blundered that bishop. Okay, that's great for us. What are they trying to do now with queen to f5? Maybe... Gosh, I don't know. Do we just threaten... I'm going to see, can we just threaten checkmate? First of all, is this checkmate? Rook moves to g3. Opponent makes some innocent move. Rook takes g7, check. It's supported by the bishop. The king can't move here, king can't move here. King can only move to h8, so king moves to h8. We move our rook out of the way, hitting them with check again. I think at the very least we'll like be up a piece. So let's go ahead and give that a shot. So rook to g3. Threatening some sort of nasty attack on their king's side. Not necessarily checkmate, but I think we're going to be up another piece shortly. Okay. What's this? F6 is on the board. Threatening our rook, and also protecting this so that we can't get in there with our rook. We do have this queen to b3 check. I don't know if that accomplishes anything. And I don't think we can take here because they have options that are not the pawn to take back. Hmm. We take here anyways. The king takes back, and then we don't have another way to check them. What if we just throw in this check? What if we just throw in queen to b3 check and see if something happens? Maybe it's it gets the queen off the back rank. I think introduces ideas of queen attacking along these diagonals, which I think are really nice. Still maintaining defense of this pawn, which I suppose we don't need anymore after they blunder their bishop. But let's see if this accomplishes anything. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. We could... Queen takes b7, threatening. Queen takes g7, and that's checkmate. That's checkmate. Yeah, because we're supported by this rook. And I don't see a strong way to defend that. I think they would need to move one of their knights or one of their rooks to defend that pawn, or they certainly can't move their queen to defend that pawn. Maybe like queen to d7. Yeah, okay, I like this. So we're threatening checkmate. Our bishop is still hanging. So that's sort of an appealing, like, oh, if they take the shiny object, then we get a chance to win the game. Yeah, there we go. So let's double check our math. Queen is protected by the rook. There's nothing that can capture the queen. All their major pieces are in the wrong places. Nothing can come between the queen and the king because the queen is like right up next to the king. Yeah, so let's take that pawn and checkmate. There we go. I got a little achievement for playing a game with the Ruy Lopez opening. Very cool. Let's look at the game review. Switch to the analysis board. Go ahead and mute this. There we go. Played pretty well. Okay, so book moves. This is the Ruy Lopez. I guess d4 is a book move. This is some variety of the Ruy Lopez that I don't know. Knight takes d4 is a book move, so I played it correctly. d3 is the last book move. Let's see. Did anything super weird happen? The analysis bar is about even. EXD5. G3 is an inaccuracy. So moving our bishop up sort of into a more active position would have been a good move here too. That's good to know. Yeah, so we're threatening the undefended d4 pawn. And also threatening this g7 pawn if their bishop sort of comes away from that location. Okay, cool. g5 is a mistake. I think it's difficult for me to see why exactly that's a mistake. I don't think we win anything. We do pin their light squared bishop, which is a worthy endeavor, but it's not suggesting some crazy follow-up. So let's continue. Yeah, I think this bishop takes d5. Removing the defender here was best. That's encouraging that these sort of tactically complicated situations where more than one piece is under attack, I did at least resolve that correctly. So that's nice. Black castles. And we're getting into sort of the big mistake of the game. 5 is excellent, e3 is excellent, rook lift, d4 is excellent. This is excellent. That's interesting. I wonder why sort of giving up this pawn was such a good idea. It does create a weakness in our position. Like, it's not challenging to recapture this pawn. It allows them to develop a rook. But yeah, I don't know. And then this is, of course, the big mistake of the game. They give away their bishop for free. Maybe they didn't realize our rook was there. They try to carry on. Takes b7, yeah, threatening checkmate. F takes e5, huge mistake, obviously blundering the game here. Queen takes g7, checkmate. Yeah, so not too crazy. I'm going to try to continue to learn the Ruy Lopez, just as like something that I can play e4 with. Hoping again to induce more caro-cans that we can see from the white side of the board, because I think it's I like to play it as black, and I think I would like to learn how to play it as white as well, just so I can better understand the attacking strategies that the white player might have when black chooses to play caro-can. But that's more for a future game. All right, I think that's it for today. See you later.